Welcome back to Wild, Wise and Curious, Embracing Our Journey, where we're excited to continue the conversation around all things peri and beyond. We'll continue to explore all our stories, challenges and importantly the wisdom we learn along the way. As usual, we'd love to chat with women just like you who might like to share your own perimeno or post-menopause stories with us. We can't wait to chat with you. Welcome to Wild, Wise and Curious. Today we're speaking with Emily. Welcome to Wild, Wise and Curious, Emily.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, Emily, so you already know the question. How did you come to realise that you were in perimenopause?
Okay, I remember quite specifically, actually, that I was on a holiday with my family. We were in Minehead in our caravan, and I'm in a blended family situation. Yeah. We don't live together, but when we're away in the caravan, we obviously do live together. Yeah. And it was a storm, really stormy Easter, and there wasn't really a lot we could do. We couldn't get out really because there was just like really high winds. Our awning almost got taken out, and lots of other people's caravans got destroyed in the storm, and we were all a bit like, we were all a bit bedraggled really, and a little bit down in the dumps anyway. And I remember just feeling really out of sorts because I hadn't had a period for like 8 weeks or something ridiculous. And like that hadn't really ever happened to me before. And I remember feeling like, because it wasn't a new relationship, but we'd been together a couple of years by this point, and it was like, I can't be pregnant, surely. Like, this, what's going on? Because my partner's had I was going to say hysterectomy then. He's had a vasectomy, and I hadn't been taking any kind of birth control or anything like that for those couple of years because I didn't need to anymore. And it was like, but I started going like, maybe I'm pregnant, maybe it's failed.
Yeah, been there, had that too.
We've all done that. Yeah, absolutely. Thinking that.
And then he was like, it just simply can't be that. It just simply can't be that. And then it was just this like dawning realization that it was probably the fact that I was 40, almost 43, and I was like, oh. And I remember feeling really like grief around it, around this like, oh my goodness, I was like, I almost wish I was pregnant because that would be better than this.
Yeah, it's that realisation, isn't it, that actually it's coming to the end of your fertile years. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah,
it really is. And actually, it's funny because my children. I've got 2 girls and they're 12 and 9, and they are very, very kind of aware of that we bleed, and I've always kept things very open. And actually there's this really funny story about my daughter in reception, my youngest, when she went into reception. The teacher pulled me to one side and said that your daughter stood up and announced to the whole class that you bleed every month. And I was like, and?
I do.
And she was like, well, I don't think it's appropriate. And I was like, it's the truth.
But everybody does it.
Why are we hiding this fact? Like, why are we worrying about this? And I was just like, go, Laurie. But they're starting to tell me, like, it's really interesting, Mum, because we're just getting to the age where we're going to start bleeding, and you're old now, and you're not going to be.
But how wonderful that you've opened that conversation.
You're not going to be doing that for much longer. And I'm like, it's true. And it's interesting actually going through that, like, quite, that dynamic, I suppose. Because it wasn't really spoken about between me and my mum, because there was only 25 years between me and my mum. And so, my mum wasn't going through perimenopause when I started to get my period and that kind of thing. So we just never spoke about menopause. We never spoke about it. It just wasn't spoken about by anybody, was it? And it's only now, since that time, that I've started to ask my mum some questions about how it was for her. Just to get a sense of what I'm potentially in for.
Also, how lovely is that, though, Emily, that you've opened the dialogue with your daughters, you've opened this dialogue with your mum, and it's, you know, having that intergenerational kind of conversation that is really important.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really, really important. And, you know, we are the generation right now that are doing so much of that, like intergenerational, ancestral kind of, healing work, you know, bringing everything out into the light and talking about it. And I got really excited when my eldest started her bleeding. She'll probably just kill me for this because it was last week
bless her.
that happened. I was sort of like, I want to initiate you, and I want to just like do something special, and I want to be all excited, and I just want to sit you down and talk to you and tell you how proud I am, and la 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 la. And she's just like, Mum, just
back off.
leave it, will you?
I feel rubbish.
I've got bellyache. My legs feel like they're falling off.
I
don't want to be anywhere
I'm
near
really,
you.
really, really happy that there's so much amazing options for the young girls now, and you know, like I mean, those pants are just brilliant.
Aren't they fantastic? I wish we'd have had those when I was younger.
I don't think I've ever used some.
Oh, really?
Have you?
Oh, yeah, because I bled so heavily that I used to have to wear the period pants, a pad, and my cup.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because I was getting so heavy.
Yeah.
So I love.
Oh, I've already been talking to her about cups because I've been wearing a cup now since I had my youngest, so 9 years, and it's just been life changing.
The moon
Life
cup.
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. And I spoke to my daughter. I was like, you don't want to do that now, but honestly, I think in a few years' time, you're gonna it's revelationary, like it's just great. So yeah, I'll definitely be encouraging her around that as soon as possible, because I think that she will have that preference for sure. It's interesting times just all round that we're living in, really. But yeah, I definitely noticed that I was feeling not only grief around the fact that I was coming into that phase of life, but I was also starting to feel really, really unsettled emotionally.
Okay.
I was like just breaking down in tears all the time, and I wasn't really necessarily noticing other symptoms around when I was going to get my bleed, but all of a sudden I'd have like a meltdown, and then the next day I'd get my bleed, and I'm like,
that's what it was.
Which had never really happened to me before.
No.
It never really happened to me before. I kind of knew, like most people, kind of knew what to expect. I was regular, and I definitely sensed that I was a bit moody and things like that, but I was just like losing my shit. I was like in tears one minute, like really angry the next. I was having found myself crying quite often in the morning times, trying to get my kids to school, and luckily that's not really happening anymore. I think we've kind of all moved through a phase, and my kids are older, so they're a little bit easier to deal with anyway. And then I'm in a much better place for a whole host of reasons as well. So I'm dealing with slightly different symptoms now, which are mainly really odd, unexplainable pains in my body.
Okay.
That just seem to come and go. Like I might have it for like a year or two in one area, and then it will just go, and there's no explanation for it, and then it'll be a different thing. And at the moment it's like something in my arm, which the physio's like, oh, you know, it's a rotator cuff injury, and I'm like, I just know it's my hormones. I just know it is.
Because we have estrogen receptors all over our body. Yeah, the shoulder thing is so common. I have it. Yesterday, we sat around a table chatting for a few hours, and because I'd sat in the same sort of position and kept my arm sort of relatively still, after a couple of hours it just started to really, really hurt, and it's the weirdest pain. You know, you can almost not reach up and get full use of your arm, can you? It's
I can't, and it's like sometimes it's numb.
Yeah. Yes.
And I wake up every morning and I must stretch in a certain way, and it just oh,
Yeah, kills you. Yeah. Yeah.
But I went to the physio and I was really, really impressed that the doctor, I called my doctor, and so many people have, awful experiences with their doctor these days, but my doctor's great.
Yes.
And I called and I wanted to book an appointment. They said, we can get you in tomorrow with a physio. And I was like,
wow.
amazing.
My doctor did the same, which was amazing too.
That is really
I didn't even know they had physios at my doctor. So I went along, and it was a man who was probably not even 30 years old yet.
Yeah.
And I mentioned about, I think it's my hormones, I'm in perimenopause, and he was just like, well, if it was on both sides, then we might think it was hormonal. And I was just like, okay, with all due respect, you probably don't know. So.
But you don't want to tell me that you don't know.
Exactly. And so I was just like, I'm just trusting that it's like all the other pains that have come and gone. It will move through me, and then there'll be something else to deal with.
Yeah.
Trying to stay on the positive side of it all. I have booked myself in with a dear friend who has magic hands.
Wonderful.
So I thought I'd treat myself to a treatment next week, and in the hope, because it's been about a year. It's been about a year, and it's just not explainable. I can't explain why it came. So that's what's making me think it's got to be hormonal. It's got to be.
Yeah. Well, I had similar. Went to the physio. They gave me some exercises to do, which I probably didn't do. So that's my own fault. But mine comes and goes, but it has been there now for a couple of years, and it comes on, and then and then it's just not there for a while, and then it will come back and it will be there, and other days it's like you've got no issues with it at all. But it's just it's such a common one. But again, it's another one that like we just don't know about it until it happens, and then you're like, oh, what are you? What's this to tell me about? So it started about October last year, eased off around January, and I went back to pole, because I've been doing pole fitness for quite a while, and I went back, and it was like it was aggravating it a little bit. So I had to stop for the wrist thing, and I was like, I love coming here, but I'm really struggling with it, with certain things that are going on in my body, and then I stopped for a month because I took my children to India for a 3-week holiday over Easter to India, and of course I was lugging a lot of bags around, and then when I came back it really flared again. I was like, maybe it was the carrying of the bags, but I hadn't. See, it's just one of those things where you're trying to put a logical explanation to it, but actually there is no logical explanation to it, and we don't really understand, like even the medical profession haven't really got a good understanding, have they, of how it all works. So, no, but it's frustrating when you then can't do the things like you say in the pole. I mean, I was swimming and going swimming about 4 or 5 times a week, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was exercise. It kept me fit. But then my shoulder just wouldn't let me do it.
I can't swim at the moment.
Yeah, it just because I'd swim 70 lengths and then sort of get out and be really, feel really good afterwards. After I'd gotten over feeling wobbly, as you do when you get out of the pool. But it was. I went from being able to do 70 lengths to not being able to do more than about 3 or 4 because it was just giving me such grief. So
mine's I forget as I go to like dive in and you reach and you overstretch, and all of a sudden you're like,
I even tried to do it with one arm on a float, so using the arm that wasn't there, but then it was just like, oh God, what is the point?
Were you going around in circles?
Yeah. little fish. Yeah, I probably was. I think we all go around in circles from time to time, don't we? I was like Nemo with his little fin. But those sorts of things. I think that's one thing I would love to not have to deal with now, because it has been there for a little while. But everything else is good. But that does still give me jip.
But it's funny, like you were saying, Emily, that you kind of transition through different varying degrees of symptoms, don't you? Like when you first start, you start realising actually this might be what that is, and it's the period changes and all that kind of stuff, and then you start noticing other things, and then I know for me I looked back and thought, oh, actually I did start to act a little bit crazy back then, so perhaps that was it. You know, and you start to piece all these things together, don't you?
Yeah. What was noticeable for me, and I suppose this kind of leads into a bigger story around what I've been up to, is that probably about 6 months after that, actually just a few months after that, I was so down, I was feeling so low, and I was going through a divorce, which took 4 years.
Oh, wow.
It was a really, really lengthy, it was hard. I had to do a lot of the work because my ex was just like refusing to get involved too much. He wouldn't even get a solicitor. It was just hard. And I just was sat in my garden one day and I was just like, how have I gotten here? Like, how have I ended up in this situation? Like, I'm really, really not in a good place. And I was just like, I know I have to get back to some semblance of joy in my life. Like, I really want to feel more joyful. And so I asked myself in that moment, like, what would bring you the most joy? And I got the answer quite quickly. And it was, you need to sing again.
Wow.
And I stopped singing when I was young.
Wow.
I'd stopped singing when I was in my early 20s. So the next thing that I did was I spoke to my partner and I said to him, like, I've been following these women online, and there's an organisation called the Singing Mamas, which you may have heard of, yes. But and I kind of been following them on socials for about a year and thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do something like that. And because I was going through a divorce and I'm a single mom and I didn't have a lot of money, it was like, can I really, afford to like spend the whatever much it was? It wasn't actually a huge amount of money. Can I afford to do the training? And would it, why would I be doing it? Because I was a movement therapist and I had my own company that worked in a special needs school close to me, and I took like my movement education in there, and that was kind of what I was focusing on work-wise at the time. And it was like, oh, can I incorporate singing? Well, of course I could. That would be a really great thing to do. So I talked myself into it. I justified it. And then when I got there, I was like, I've got a feeling that I'm here for me. Like, I don't know if I necessarily want to put the pressure on myself to like integrate this into my work right now. I've realised, because I sat in a circle for the first time with other women. I'd never ever had that experience before. And I was able to be really, really honest, not only with them, but with myself for the first time in a really long time. And I just allowed myself to be held, and I got vulnerable, and I just admitted that I was really lost. And I was so dissatisfied, and I felt really ambitious, but I just didn't know where to focus my energy. And I just knew that so much had to change for me. And so that was like the start of an unraveling for me. And I think when I came back from that, I started to talk what sounded, I think, quite crazy talk to my partner. And he actually pulled me up on it a few times. And he was like, you're literally talking like... I just don't understand what you're talking about. Like, I was trying so hard to like build my business, and I was getting really ahead of myself, and I was looking at this big picture, but it was like so far away, and I was just like getting really cross with him that he couldn't understand what it was that I was what I was aiming for. And I went to an open a business day, like a local business day. And there was a workshop for startups, because I was like, I'm going to start this new business. It's going to be amazing. And I'll go to this startup and this workshop. And I remember breaking down into tears in front of like a room full of like 20 people I didn't know. And that is not me. Like, I would never, ever do that. And I had all these people rushing around me and like comforting me and saying like, you seem really vulnerable. Can we help? Like, what do you need? And And I was just like, what is going on? Like, what's going on? Like, I'd been self-employed for a really long time, like 15 years or something. And I was like, I'm here and I'm in a startup. I just don't feel like I can get started with anything. And so I calmed down, chatting to this lovely lady who took me for a cup of tea, and we talked about singing and we talked about song, and she was telling me about positive psychology, which is one of the things that she does in her practice. And then I went off and got some lunch, and I went to sit in a talk all about neurodivergence at work. And I just thought, I'll just pop in here and sit at the back and eat my sandwich quietly. But I was anything but quiet. I was just like jumping into the conversation, giving like answers to this, answers to that, really getting involved. And then at the end of the talk, the people who had hosted the conversation came over to me and said, when did you realise that you had ADHD? And I was like, now.
Wow, okay.
Right in this moment right now. I was
What
like,
did they say? Oh my gosh.
They were like, oh, you know, like, and it had been clear because I bumped into one of them in the toilets beforehand, and I just poured my heart out to her about what had just happened in this previous workshop, and I was so open. And she said to me, she said, like, because she's got ADHD, and she was like, only people she said that's exactly the sort of thing that I would do, you know, like just tell everyone your life story the minute that you meet them, kind of thing. And it wasn't a huge surprise to me, to be fair, because I had already I'd spent time with another girl at the singing 1 week before, who I'd shared a room with, and she had ADHD and autism. And I remember her saying to me, because I said to her, I've got this feeling that maybe I've got ADHD, and she was like, I think you do. So there'd already been a little bit of a chat. Okay. And then I'd also been looking into it because my ex-husband had said to me, do you think that one of our daughters might have ADHD? And I hadn't thought that, but she'd been struggling quite a lot with anxiety and all sorts of other kind of quite particular behaviours. And so I'd started researching it and kind of stopped because it was like resonating hard. Like a lot of the things were really resonating with me, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to put the lid back on that for a minute. But then in this moment where I'd broken down in front of like a ton of people that I didn't know, and then somebody saying to me like, when did you know? And I was like, now, right now. And that's when I started to ask for help then at that point, because I mean, I had all this energy and all this creativity and all this ideas, but I just couldn't put anything together, couldn't actually make anything work, and I just felt like such a mess. And I realized that I'd been shaming myself for that internally for a really, really, really long time.
And it's quite common as well that women in midlife go through exactly the same as you have done. ADHD, I think, has been diagnosed for a lot of women going through this transition. Yeah,
and actually it started making me look back to when I was in my teenage years, because obviously during these times of like hormonal fluctuations and changes, the symptoms of it can be very much exaggerated. And then I looked back to when I was a teenager and I was going through a lot of change and the things that I was doing, and I was like, oh, hang on a minute, that explains why I peeled all my wallpaper off my walls instead of revising for my exams. Like just sit there just peeling the wallpaper off the wall, like picking my hair out. You know? And I was like, okay, that really explains that. And then I had this other realization with like, oh my goodness, that's why I had the upbringing that I had. Like my dad passed away 18 years ago, but he absolutely, I know for a fact he had ADHD. Like he was so misunderstood, and he had like comorbidities of what would be classed as comorbidities for ADHD. Like he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and had spent time, you know, in hospital for those kind of things. And you know, I had a fairly traumatic upbringing at times because of the things that went on with my dad. And I've had such a healing experience since this realization. And I think that's what I have taken from being in this time of my life, it's like, yeah, you know, there's a lot to deal with and it's a bit of a roller coaster, but there's so much healing to be done. And you know, it's actually we're in a very powerful time of our lives when we go into perimenopause.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
I'm nodding and then I'm like, oh, we're on a podcast, so I do need to say yes, 100%. Sometimes you get that engrossed in the conversation and listening, you're just like, I'm nodding along with it, you know.
So, you know, that this realization for me was quite monumental, because, you know, I was feeling really dissatisfied. I was feeling really, really low. I realized that I'd been doing a lot of things out of fear, like saying yes to being and doing lots of things to earn just enough money to get by. And I'd been doing that for a really long time, and it's like I always was very, very able to take on lots of different things, and I'm good at lots of different things. And so I was like a content creator for one company, and I was a movements educator for another company, and then I was doing like 4 or 5 different projects in different places, and I, just because I can doesn't mean I should. And I've kind of got to that realization now that what happened next was I decided to get quiet. Like, I was like, I'm going to stop working on that project, I'm going to stop working on that project, I'm going to just say thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm taking some time out. And I just trusting that I would find something like deep within myself that really, really was satisfying. And the reason why I'm using that word satisfying is because I discovered human design, and I started to learn and self-study human design. And I'm a manifesting generator with a 5-2 profile, which means I've kind of got this natural leadership style, but then I also am a hermit kind of archetype, and I need to spend time on my own in order for my creative gifts to kind of shine through. And I hadn't realized that about myself, because that was the unconscious part of myself, and I'd spent my whole life trying to be in the leadership place and trying to be out there and be seen and do all the things, but my true nature and my true gifts were locked away inside of me from like childhood, and I wasn't using them and I wasn't expressing them. And I didn't realise that at the time, but I had discovered that I had this 5-2 profile, and that actually I'm meant to work on lots of things, and I wasn't flaky, you know, by starting things and leaving them when they weren't bringing me joy anymore. Like, that was all part of my nature, and so I was able to look at myself through the lens of human design rather than neurodivergence, and start to feel empowered by it rather than feeling like there was something wrong with me. So which made a huge difference. Tell
us a little bit about human design then, Emily. What is the background of that?
Okay, so human design is it was something that came around in the 1980s originally, and I won't say too much about the name of the guy that did it, although I think his name is Rahu. I can't remember how you pronounce it. I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah. We can put it in the show notes. I'll look it up.
But anyway, he had this download, and it's a combination of like astrology and the Kabbalah, and which is like the tree of life, and it's got gene keys in there, and the I Ching, and it's like this amazing combination of all of these ancient wisdom traditions. And for me, the astrology part of it was what got me there, because I'd always had an interest in astrology since I was young, but I kind of locked that away as well, because it was like when I started getting into my teenage years and I was hanging around with boys, and I suppose I just didn't really want them to think like, oh, you're a bit weird talking about astrology or whatever.
We have.
So I locked it all away, and it was like it started coming back around the time of like COVID. I started to follow a lot of podcasts, and because we had all this time on our hands, and I started following astrology podcasts, and I found it really, really helpful. And so the fact that there was this link to astrology really, really fascinated me. So based on your time, date and place of birth, you will have what's called a body graph, and it's a chart which shows all of these different numbers on it, and it's got like your energy centers on there, which are similar to like the chakra system. But essentially, it's called the science of differentiation. So it's basically showing how we are all uniquely different, and we are all supposed to be different, and we're all medicine for each other. And so you can start to look at your little quirks and the way that you are, and you can start to recognize like patterns potentially, or ways of thinking or doing, and go, oh, okay, like, oh yeah, I recognize that in myself, and actually I incarnated for that, like that's part of what I bring, right? And so I loved it, because the first thing you learn about yourself is what energy type you are, and we all have a different energy type, and there's 5 different types, or there's 4 different types, and one's a hybrid. And I'm the hybrid. So we've got manifestors, generators, reflectors, projectors, and then the hybrid is the manifest and generator. And I'm one of those hybrid types. And then you've got your profile lines, which mean a whole host of other things.
Wow.
And it's like a life. I'm absolutely certain there's going to be a lifelong kind of exploration and adventure into discovering things about myself via the lens of human design. But one of the first things I learned was how to kind of really tune into your body's wisdom, and how to start to kind of know whether something's for you or not, and listening to, you know, the response from my sacrum and from my sacral center, and then and so yeah, I learned that like frustration for me as a manifesting generator is a big no-no. So anything that has me in a sense of frustration is like, okay, how can I get myself out of this situation as quickly as possible? And anything that brings me deep satisfaction is going to be like a big yes, like let's follow that. That's where I'm meant to be putting my energy. So I started to live my life very much by just those very simple basic principles. And so I say to anybody that I introduce their human design to them, because I'm happy to introduce it. And then if they want to go on to a deeper exploration, I kind of just send them off in the direction of the people that I've worked with, because I find that is the best way for them to go. And so I started living my life like that, and I just found that my life was just like instantly changing, like, you know, it was rapidly starting to evolve, and I was starting to realize things. And then I got quiet, got really, really quiet, and stopped doing a lot of things. And then on the 22nd of April last year, I woke up from a dream. I can't remember what the dream was about, but I'm absolutely certain I was dreaming. And in the like liminal space between being asleep and awake, I heard a very clear message. And the message was, the dandelions have got something they need you to know.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
And I sat up out of bed, because it was such clarity. I was like, okay, I'm listening. What
does that mean?
What do they have to tell me?
What do the dandelions need me to know? What's the dandelions message? And I started journaling, and I'd been journaling for about 1.5 years by this point. Interestingly enough, I was doing some free journaling prompted by one of my companies that I was working for. I was doing some free journaling one day, and the first thing that came up onto the page was, you need to write a book. And I was like, what? Like, because it was weird, because I didn't really have anything that I wanted to write a book about at that point. And then underneath it, I wrote, you need to ask for help. And so I was like, that's strange. And I kind of just dismissed it. And I just kind of like carried on with whatever else I was doing. But I'd carried on this practice of journaling. I found it really supportive to kind of write down all my feels and that kind of thing. And so when I sat up and I'd heard this message from the dandelions, I was like, what is it you need me to know? So like most people in society now, I grabbed my smartphone and I switched off of airplane mode, and I went onto Google and I put the dandelions message. What is the dandelions message? And of course, AI is the first thing that comes up on a Google search now. And the AI had compiled all of these spiritual messages from the dandelion, and I was just resonating so hard with every single thing that was there right at the top of Google. And I was like, oh, like, this is amazing. So I started writing all these things down and just like putting my own thoughts next to them and like how it was relating to my life at the moment and all of that. And then I heard the voice again say, you need to write a book.
Wow.
Everybody needs to know this.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's clear. I'm going to write a book. And so I told my friends and family, I told my partner Craig, and he was, I just remember like feel like, because they'd heard of so many Mad Hatter schemes from me, you know, like over the years. Oh right, yeah, okay, you're going to write.
Well,
a
that
book.
sounds like very familiar.
And I honestly, it wasn't the first time that this thing about the book had come up, because obviously it had come out in the journal, but also some mentors of mine that I'm still in touch with, 2 people had mentioned to me that I should write a book. And this wasn't about the dandelions, it was about the movement stuff that I'd been working on in schools. And obviously, like, it was really inspiring to them, and they felt like I should share it, like, in a book format. And I just remember just always the response being like, no way, like, I could not write a book. That's not me. I'm not good enough for that. That was really, really what I was feeling inside, is that I'm not good enough for that. And one of the reasons I think for that is because I couldn't really even finish reading a book, let alone feel that I could write a book, you know. Like, I am just a serial, like, get really excited about a book, read the first chapter, maybe 1.5 chapters, and then I put it down, I get excited about something else, and then I'm on to the next and on to the next, and I rarely finish reading a book, rarely. And so I'd been shaming myself, and actually, as I started writing, because I was listening, right? I was really listening when the dandelions came that morning and said, you need to write a book about this. I just started writing. And I wrote about 40,000 words in the first month and a half.
Wow.
So, really?
And was this just free writing?
Just free writing about my life. I was writing about my life, and hardly any of those words make it into my book, because I had to go through that process because I was realising all of these things about my life where I'd formed these beliefs about myself which were not true.
Mm-hmm. We do, don't we?
Yeah, and I remember being shamed as a child for not being able to read very well. And it wasn't that my family wanted to shame me or felt that they were like harming me. But my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, learnt to read, like, before he even started school. He could read. He was just really, really good. So when I was learning to read, he just learned with me. Yeah. But really quickly, whereas I was struggling. And he used to just take the mickey out of me. When I said things wrong or tried to read a sign and I got it all wrong, and he'd just laugh at me. And I just thought I'm rubbish at reading, you know. And I think I held on to that deep inside. And I hadn't really realised until I was writing about it all these years later that was still there in me.
Yeah, it becomes part of your story then, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and how you show
material.
up in the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, and I'd done relatively well at school. You know, I was a really conscientious person at school, and I was really sociable, and I got on well for the most part. I was bullied quite a lot because I was very confident, and I loved drama and singing and all of that. And other girls in my school didn't like me for it. And so I think that's another reason potentially why I didn't continue to pursue it as I got older. There's other reasons which I won't go into, and they're in my book. But so anyway, I went through this process of free writing quite a lot, and I was thinking, how am I going to get all of this in my in my book? Because when I first decided to write the book, I thought, I know what I'll do. I will write a chapter, and then I'll invite all these other amazing women that I've met since I did the singing. I'll invite them to write chapters, because everyone's got these amazing stories, and I'm so inspired by all of these women that I've met and the music that I'm listening to now. And I was still in that mindset of like, who wants to listen to my story? Who wants to read my book? You know, like, I'm not good enough for this. I've got all these people that I'm in contact with that are so much more interesting than me. And so I had these 14,000 words, and I'm thinking, how am I going to distill this down into like a 4,000 word chapter? Because it's quite a lot. And then I joined my publishing outfit called the Unbound Press, and I had come across them through listening to other podcasts, and Nicola Humber had featured on podcasts that I'd been listening to, and so I started following her on Instagram and things like that. And then when she put out a mastermind, which was about a month and a half later, she put out a free mastermind to come for women. It's for women who are writing transformational books. And it's a hybrid publishing company. So essentially I am self-publishing, but I have the support of a traditional kind of publishing
that's
house
really interesting
to support me through the process. And it's quite expensive. It was a lot of money for me. In fact, it was the price of the package that I paid for was half of the money that I got from my divorce. And I didn't get a lot of money from my divorce, but you know, it was like, I should really save this money towards a house because I only rent, and I should maybe save this money towards a car because my car's like on its last legs and all of this stuff, and I still have the same car now, and I just thought, no, I could feel it in my bones, like, this is really, really important. And I know that if I go with this lady, with this particular publishing company, that magical things are going to happen. I just knew, it was like my body was telling me that. And so I dived in with this publishing company, and Nicola had a one-to-one with me online, and she said, oh, we do this meditation where you connect to your book. She said, I suggest you start there, because at this point I still don't really know how the book was going to be, what it was going to be about.
Never seen anybody do that sort of thing as a book publisher. Wow, okay.
Yeah,
Incredible.
and she really, really holds space for women, particularly at this stage of our lives where we are going through these massive, like, quite radical and often magical transformations, and we're realizing like what we're here for, what we really truly are here for, and but we also have these stories potentially, but we don't. What she says is that, like, often with a traditional publishing company, they'll want you to put like a book proposal together, and they'll want you to know, like, what's the start, what's the middle, what's the end. And it often kills the magic completely, because people often can't even write that proposal because they don't.
Very tricky.
I went into this following the nudge from the dandelions, and I didn't really know what the book was going to be, and I just trusted that I was going to find out through the writing of the book. It's like the writing itself was going to give me the clarity. The writing itself was going to give me the healing journey that I needed in order to come out the other side and know what I would now want to do with my life. And I just trusted that.
Are you going to have T-shirts when the book's out that says the nudge of the dandelions? Because I love it. I just heard you say it and I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. The nudge of the dandelions.
I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do for merch-wise. I haven't really thought about it. But then what happened was I said to Nicola, well, I want to have these other women contribute, and I want to have other people's songs, because there's all these amazing songs that I've been listening to and singing, and they've really, really helped me to kind of like change this internal dialogue that I've had. And it's so much more empowering and all of the rest of it. And she said, do the meditation. So I did the meditation to connect with my book, and I feel like the book and the dandelions are one and the same. And it was very clear. It came to me quite instantly. This book is not about anybody else. It's about you.
Yes. And it's the process, Emily. It's part of the process, isn't it? And what you get out of it at the end is you will have processed a whole host of things to get you to that point.
And
really
then, it's really
exciting.
exciting. And then somebody else can read your story, and it might inspire or ignite something in them that makes the trajectory of their life totally change.
I mean, that was the intention. That was definitely the intention behind the book initially, was that, you know, there must be other people out there that maybe are feeling a bit lost, and maybe there's some things that can help them discover themselves, like the human design, for example, like, you know, discovering how to listen more to your intuition or your body wisdom or whatever you want to call it. And understanding that there are other people going out there. You know, it took me a long time to be able to admit that I felt that there was some neurodivergence within me and my family. I felt a lot of shame around that, a lot of shame, and I didn't want to necessarily say it out loud, and it's been a process, it's been a journey to be able to talk about it. I've not got a formal diagnosis. I don't feel like I need a formal diagnosis. And so I just, that's another thing, like getting over the shame of saying, like, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm not. You know, I don't need to. No. So anyway, I then was quite relieved, because I'd written these 40,000 words by this point, and I was thinking, okay, so at least I don't have to like try and condense this into like a one chapter or whatever, and I can just get to work with like writing my story and figuring this all out. And then I met another author and that's the brilliant thing about writing with the Unbound Sisters, is that we are a community, and we're a community of all women who are authors writing transformational books, and there's so much to be inspired by, and there's so much like the energies, you know, like we get together on calls and we're all feeling the moon, and we're all feeling the energies of the time, and so the themes that come up are all really similar, and we can kind of really, really support each other through all of that, and any doubts and fears that we may have around our own abilities to write books and that kind of stuff. And I met this other author. I saw her on an Instagram live, and it was, again, I had that feeling, my body almost my body was like called towards her, and I was like, who is this lady? I am going to work with her. I just knew it. I just knew it in my bones. I had never met her before, so I immediately messaged her on Instagram on the DMs, and I was like, it'd be great to meet you and have a chat about your story, because she'd already published her book years ago, and she was bringing it out on an audio book, and she was talking about some similar things that I was talking about, you know, and she's a singer. She's a professional opera singer, or she trains as a professional opera singer. And she's got a different kind of story around voice, but she's talking about her voice and how singing has helped her in different ways, and that kind of thing, and how it's actually hindered her in some ways as well, through a kind of formal training and a perfectionist kind of world around that. And so she didn't come back to me, or she did, but we didn't get to kind of connect properly. And then it was a few months later that she saw me at a group writing session online, and she was like, who's this lady talking about song and singing? And oh my goodness, this is interesting. And we still didn't connect. And then I followed her on Instagram, and I saw that she was holding a Zoom call, and she was inviting women to come in. And so I went in and joined the Zoom call at the beginning of December. And then that was it, really. We just started working together straight away. It felt really, really easy. And now we run an events company called The Power of Us, which invites soul-led, heart-led, visionaries, artists, change makers, light workers, chain breakers, to come and speak their truth, like unfiltered, like however wacky it might sound, like come and share your truth. And there's a lot of musicians that come through with us, and we had our first event back in May, and it was absolutely amazing, and we've got our second event coming up in November. So I'm hoping that I can launch my book at that event. And what she unlocked in me, because we started singing to each other on voice notes, and she was like, this is so lovely, like I've not She's like, I sing to people all the time, but I don't have people sing to me. And the fact that I've now got a friend who's singing to me on voice notes, it was just like, she loved that. And then we started this company. I was the events manager. So I wasn't actually kind of involved as much as I am now, but I was the event manager for a few weeks. And I said to her, look, I really think that you should get some sponsorship for this event, because I don't think you're going to break even. And unless you're going to break even, there's not really much point in trying to put this on. So I said, let me help you build some sponsorship packages, and that might actually just keep us afloat, and we can do this. And she had some resistance around it, and it very much, you know, fears coming up, like, what do I have to offer a sponsor and all of this? And I was like, come on, Natalie, you got stuff to offer. And she went onto my website and she did a creativity meditation that I'd created a few months before. And she came back to me and she was like, wow, lady, that just unlocked something in me. So here you go. This is it. And she started like railing off like a gold package, a silver package, a bronze package, and all of the things that people can have for their sponsorship. And I was like, this is great. Keep it coming. Amazing. I've got it. I've got a really busy night. I've got kids clubs and I've got to cook dinner and I've got to go to work. But I'll come back to you once I've digested all of this. Literally, you know, like it needed to be felt in my stomach and I needed to digest it. And I went to bed that night and I dreamt. It was a really vivid dream. And I'd had a dream that I had been given my dream job as a private detective.
Ooh.
I've never wanted to be a private detective.
I was going to say, where did that come from?
So I wake up in the morning and I was like, wow, that's strange. I've never wanted to be a private detective. And then the next thought was, what have I always wanted to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, I've always wanted to go to the recording studio. And the top sponsorship was to go into the recording studio with her and record a song. And I just said to her, look, rather than paying me, I want in. I'm gonna do the work, but I want to come and have that experience with you. I'll be your sponsor. Wow. And so we started working like that. And I went over to Spain where she lives, and I got to go into the recording studio. I recorded 2 songs that I'd written, and I was just so in awe of like the magic that was created in that studio, and I felt so at home. And I don't feel generally at home here or in myself ever. Like I've just moved around so much and never really felt like home. So like home can come to me in different ways at different times, in a sense or a feeling, and I felt at home in that space. And I just said, when can I come back? And so since then, since April this year, I've written a whole album of songs which feature in my book, and a whole another album. So I've got 2 albums of songs. I just asked for the songs and they've come, and I'm just living.
Emily,
like,
that
honestly,
sounds fantastic. How exciting! All these things that you've done since, you know, starting on this whole journey. It's incredible.
I'm having such a wonderful time, just allowing myself to express like myself, this stream of consciousness that's come through me since the dandelions kind of woke me up that morning. And I feel like it's really, really important, and the messages that are coming through in the songs are so needed right now in the world that we live in, and they are medicine. They absolutely are. And so I call my music folk medicine, or medicine folk, and it's eclectic, but the message that runs through is very, very cohesive, and it's clear, and it's like I say, it's needed, and it's starting to get out into the world now, and people are starting to listen in and want to connect, and so I've had some magical experiences since then, where I went to Stone Circle near to where I live at Stanton Drew, and I went for the ceremony at Lunasa, and I sang there, and the druids that held the ceremony have invited me back for Equinox. They've invited me to craft a song
Oh gosh, wow.
and go and sing it there in ceremony, and so yeah, I've become a bard essentially.
Amazing. That's so exciting.
But it's because you're living authentically, aren't you? You're living your authentic self.
You're being you.
Yeah. And with that comes so much magic.
Yeah, because I spent my whole life up till about the age of 15 bringing people together through story and song. Like, that's what I did. That's what my soul knew I was here to do. But the conditioning and the fears and the bullying and the worrying about what everybody else was going to think stopped me from doing it.
So by unlearning all the things you'd learned and going back to being that young person before you were 15, you're now living you. Yeah. And the joy is there.
Yeah, the joy really, really is. And yeah, I was just going to say, like, I met you guys at Barefoot, and I was trying to get you to come to my singing session.
I know, and we were meeting somebody. Otherwise, we would have come, because I love singing and writing. So listening to you, I'm like, oh, yeah. So I was singing. I had done singing circles at festivals last year with my friend who I met on the training, and we have a great time doing that together. But this was my first time doing it on my own, so it was a big deal for me to go out on my own. And I feel like my confidence this year has grown so much. Like, I've led some really seriously amazing songs at in Circle, and it's just been wonderful. And I just started a singing circle at my local goddess temple. I have a goddess temple in Bristol, 10 minutes. Wow, okay. That's a bit of a drive from Leicester, so
yeah,
I think we might maybe once we could have a little visit.
I'm so blessed to have it on my doorstep, and the community that I found there. And I'm just about to start the priestess training this month with them, and so I'm going to be going out onto the land and working very closely with the land and the energies and the people and the herbs and the plants and the song.
Wow.
And I'm already writing another book.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's just all in good time. And I'm going to start a show as well. And the book and the show, the new book and the show are kind of one and the same. So I'm going to hold myself accountable with the Wheel of the Year, and I'm going to write a chapter for each turn. So yeah, super excited.
Beautiful. That sounds absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Emily, we could sit here and talk to you for hours, because I feel like we've only just
scratched it. We've scratched the surface. I'm just thinking of all the things I've got to now research, the humour.
All the things that we've got to look at. I think we perhaps need a part 2.
I'd say we need a part 2.
But yeah, anybody out there who's listening, who feels that they want to come speak their truth, check it out. The Power of Us. You can find it on my website, which I'm sure you'll share the details of. And also, if you want to, if you're feeling the call to write a book, I can't recommend the Unbound Press highly enough. It's just the most magical.
I'll have a look.
Yeah, wonderful place to go and be with other female authors who you feel so held and so nurtured and so supported, and it just feels possible, like to go from like never wanting to write a book to suddenly now I've written a book and it's being published this year, and I've written an album, and I'm bringing that out into the world. And like all the things that I never thought I'd get a chance to do, and I'm now doing them at this stage of my life. And I really truly do believe like life is just starting for me now.
Definitely. We are the same.
We feel the same. And I think what your journey is showing as well is how wonderful it is once you're in flow and things start coming your way and you're intuitively deciding where to go next. That's when it all feels really magical, and I think we certainly feel that since we kind of met and started all the things that we've been doing.
Yeah. And giving yourself permission. If there's something you've ever wanted to do, like I think I sat back and was waiting to be picked.
Yes.
Like, you've got to pick yourself.
If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yeah, no.
You have got to pick yourself.
We always say, just do the thing.
Yeah.
Just do the thing. Don't think about it, just do the thing.
And then you can work out if it brings you joy or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's a fear coming up, usually that's because there's something there for you to learn, and it's like that edgy feeling, like, oh my goodness, can I really do this?
Yes.
And one of the things that Nicola Humber said to me, which was really great advice, was that if you've got a fear around something, often that will shut people down, especially when it comes to writing, and it will be like, oh, I can't write about that. But actually, if you bring it to the page, that's where the magic happens, because that's where you really connect. You really do open up a channel for people to connect with you, because you're being vulnerable in that moment to express what your fears are, right? And I remember doing that on a number of occasions throughout the book, and just realizing that it unlocked something. You know, it unlocked something where I was having potentially like a writer's block, and I hadn't written for like 2 months, and it was like, oh, I really want to get this chapter finished, and I don't know how to finish it. And then I'd realise that I was fearful about something, so I'd bring it to the page, and then I'd just be in flow again, you know?
Wow, that's great. That's really good advice.
But also for people that aren't necessarily going to be writing a book, even just journaling and having that same kind of just sitting there, and I found it really cathartic when I've like been stuck with something, and then literally, like you were saying, you know, just free writing, and then that helps with the processing, and it really does become like a
form of therapy.
Yeah, really magical. Yeah, magical.
Yeah, and you know, the link between writing and, like you say, that therapy that you get from it, and actually the power of writing down, you know, like there's been studies, hasn't there, into like, if you write something down, then it's much more likely that you will achieve your goals and things like that. You know, recognizing how you can take that one step further and actually speaking it out loud. You know, like we've had our throat chakra kind of cut off, and we've had our voices taken away from us, you know, like you could go back to like the whole witch queen thing and all of that. And we're realizing our power when we come and sit in circle, you know, how transformative that is, how healing it is, and that we're safe. We are actually safe to do these things now. You know, we weren't for a really long time, but we are now, and we will change the world through sharing our stories in this way.
Oh, we absolutely.
Oh my goodness,
Emily.
a gazillion percent.
Yeah.
Oh,
this has been absolutely a joy to sit and talk with you today.
It really has.
But we've
thank you so much for listening to my story.
Oh,
you
it's
know,
been an absolute pleasure.
I really appreciate it. And you know, I was just on Instagram the other day, and I was trying to do a live, and it wouldn't let me because I don't have enough followers. So I was like, I really need to get my followers.
We're the same as well. We're doing the doing, but the social stuff, it's just almost like,
it's so difficult.
Oh my god, it takes so much time, and we just want to have the conversations.
Like, what algorithms? What? I don't like it,
I know.
but I do like it at the same time.
I know.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it is that kind of love-hate relationship.
It is. Because it does bring awareness to the work that we're all doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had the most beautiful message I woke up to. Oh my goodness. I woke up to a message 3 days ago from an old friend who I haven't actually seen in person for a really very, very, very long time, like 20 years maybe. And I knew that she was following me because she messages and comments and says like, oh, I love this, and oh, this is really inspiring, or whatever. And then she joined my WhatsApp group and has been part of that little community that I've started up. And the other morning I woke up to a voice note, and it said, I just have to share this with you, Emily. I was watching something on the news, and it was this incredible woman who had completed marathons against the odds. She's got these health conditions, but she's completed these marathons. And she said, my eldest son came down the stairs. He's like 11 or something, came down the stairs, and he said, oh, what's all of this about? And she said, oh, it's just some incredible woman doing incredible things. And he went, oh, is that Emily Doe?
Oh, I love that.
And she said, isn't that just so precious, like unprompted?
Yes.
She said, I have been showing him your things on social media because he really resonates with song. He loves music, and the fact that you're now sharing your voice and sharing your songs and sharing your music on social media and sharing the love that is being created when you're singing in circle and that kind of thing. And he said, and she said, the ripples are being felt, darling. Just keep doing what you're doing. And it just made me realise, it doesn't matter how many followers I have. It's reaching the people that it needs to reach, and I'm trusting that it's reaching the people that it needs to reach.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that's a great time to
wrap up this episode. Yes. Absolutely.
Ready for part 2, I think.
Definitely.
Thanks again, guys. It's been lovely chatting.
It really has.
Yeah,
and
I know I've talked a lot at you.
No. And that's the thing, though. People are probably sick to death of hearing me and Lou. So we're really grateful.
Yeah, no, we love hearing your story.
But, if we could put a link on the episode as well to the book and the group that you've set up that people can come to. If we can have those links and stuff, then we could pop that on there too, so people can get.
Well, everything can be found really simply on my website, which is just emilydoe.com. So I'll share that with you. Fabulous. And on my Instagram account as well, because it's only Instagram that won't let me do lives.
Yeah, well, you'll get there, and as long as it's reaching the people that need to hear it.
Yeah,
right.
There's ways and means. And I'm not that bothered about it, but it did make me laugh. I was like, oh, okay.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much.
Take care and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, guys. You too. Enjoy your weekend.
And you take care.
Take care. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Wild, Wise and Curious. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to email us at info@wildwiseandcurious.com or reach out on our socials at wild_wise_and_curious. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay curious and we'll see you next time.